Hi, it's Anne. Thanks for stopping by. We're going to be using an old file folder today, and many of you have told me that you have lots of things like this sitting around your house, and we're going to be putting it to good use making tag bases, but we're going to be putting journaling space on the backs of those tags and saving them to just to decorate the front. And I think these are handy to have along. A lot of times, at least for me, I'll get all my, the fronts of my tags finished, and then I don't get around to putting the journaling space on the back. We're going to take care of that problem with this batch and do some with the back first. So that'll be very clear in a moment. My friend Kathy gave me a lot of old file folders when she was digitizing her office records. She had a lot of paper records to throw away. We're going to cut Martin's name off here. I'm sure that Martin, whoever Martin is, or maybe it's somebody whose last name is Martin, I'm sure was nothing but good information about Martin here, but I don't want to have this part be part of the mini masterboard actually that I'm going to be making. So I'm just going to draw a little line there to visually tell me where I want to cut this off. This part I am going to be using for this for a future project. This little bit here, that's probably going to be waste. Isn't that a shockaroo? We usually like to do things without waste, but that particular one, those tiny little pieces I think are going to be something that hits the bin. So we don't want to worry about them right now. So I'm bringing in my big trimmer, and because I have drawn that little pencil line, I'm going to cut that off. So here goes Martin. I'll save that for something else because I think this would be really nice to collage on top of, using the folder as a base, and have that be like a page divider in a journal. But that's for another day. So what we have here is we have a folder that is 8 by, well, it's 11 3/4. I was calculating it to be about 11 1/2, but it's, it's still going to work just fine with the way that I'm going to do this. And there we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my little bin of all of my plain scraps, and because we're going to be actually filling this file folder, collaging this surface with nothing but plain paper. And plain doesn't have to mean completely blank. I mean plain like it can be a journaling surface. I've got a few little, I've got some graph paper here. These are just total scraps, lots of offcuts, little pieces of packing paper. These are all things that we can take pen in hand and write on, and I'm just going to fill up this this file folder surface with these scraps. This is a good way if you have some big scraps you want to get rid of. We're going to be cutting this into pieces, so don't worry about doing a fine decorative sort of collage. You can use up some of those big pieces if you want to get rid of those. All of it will be put to good use, because this is what we're going to be prepping for journaling space for these tags that are yet to be. This would promise to be the world's most boring video if I had you look at me collaging all these plain pieces down. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it on both sides of this folder, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to give you the dimensions for how we can cut this into the tag backs for 10 different tags. I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so that was easily done. I've got my blank side here, and I have done my coverage all the way around. I'm actually kind of enjoying the way this look. This almost could be a journal cover or something if it was cut down. So maybe we'll use that technique at another time. But for now, these are going to be the backs, the journaling surfaces of 10 different tags. Before I get to the cutting, I realized I wanted to be a little more clear about where I actually trimmed down the file folder. This is another one where I covered up the person's name. They were a little more recognizable there. But I did the cutting, I drew that little line on the inwardmost edge of the file folder because I wanted everything to be nice and even on one side, or on each opening side. I hope that makes sense. So I didn't want to cut, for example, along here because then along this edge, because then I'd have a dip there, and I wanted there to be a nice even edge to collage right up next to. So I hope that makes sense. In fact, let's go ahead. If I was going to do this again, I would put my straight edge right up at that innermost cut and draw my cutting line right there. So everything's going to come out nice and even. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's bring in the cutter again. And here we go. If I was not going to be using this right away, I would probably just store these in a stack, you know, like this or like this, on the shelf in my craft room, because it takes up practically no space. And it's just nice to have, you know, at the ready. You know, you could do really colorful collage, other kinds of masterboarding on the other side, and then cut that up for tags. But for right now, we're only going to really worry, well, we're not worried at all. We're only going to address the issue of the journaling surface and kind of do our masterboard that way. So I'm going to, well, I'm sorry, whacking you there. I'm going to cut this into 2 pieces. And I know that that's at 8 inches, so I'm probably not going to get a whole picture here, but you know what I'm doing here. All right, there. Now I have 2 pieces. They're 8. Yeah, you know, I calculated this to be, first to be 11.5 and then 11 3/4, and it didn't come out exactly either one of those, but you know, we're going to be very close. So anyway, here are our 2 pieces. Why did I put this away? It's not away, it's just sitting off to the side. We're going to bring, we have 1 page that is going to make us our smaller tags and another one that's going to make us our larger tags. So here are the measurements. I had somebody the other day actually ask me about tag measurements, and usually I just eyeball things, but for this purpose, because I didn't want there to be any waste, I went ahead and did the calculating. So anyway, this, I'll leave this here. Let me make certain this is in shot. So you can do a screenshot and you can have these. This is just my scratch paper, but I hope that'll make sense. A little tip when you're doing these sorts of the cutting for some of these one-sheet wonders, if you look at the diagram and look for the line that goes all the way through the piece, that's the cut you want to make first. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'll have to set this, well, I'll kind of have it like here. So I want to make this cut here that's 2 3/4 inches in. And there's 1, there's 2. Actually, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to do it from this side. The actual measurement is slightly less than 2 3/4, so I'm going to even up that edge. And am I in shot? I am not. Let me come over here. I have to do this standing up, I think. So there's our long piece. It's just a little less than 2 3/4, but because I know that we've got 8 inches top to bottom, I can go 4 and 4 on that measurement. So there's these 2 little pieces, and these, I use this size of tag a lot as some of my my smaller tuck-ins. Now I'm going to want to look for the piece that remains, which is this one. This is the line that goes all the way through. So I'm going to cut that one, and I'm going to go 6 inches in, because that's the depth that I'm doing here. I tend to, on my diagrams, I mark the width as you're looking at it on the diagram, even though we would tend to be using the piece the other way. So here's my 4.5 by 2 pieces, and they're going to be just like this. There's these 2 little guys. Now that leaves us only with this area here, and that's easy as can be. That's 9 inches wide, and we're going to go 3 inches across and 3 inches across here. And there are, what nice writing surface this is. And again, it doesn't have to match. I journal all the time on the backs of tags that have this sort of patchy collage with my writable surfaces. And it looks great. It just looks great. And you know you're using up those scraps. So that's really, really good. Okay, so here are these 7 cards out of the smaller size. Now let's switch to the other side of our journal, or the other side of our little master board. And wait, that isn't the one that what did I do with that one? Here it is. I had all this scratch paper around. We're going to get 3, I'll leave this here for you to do a screenshot if you wish. We're going to do 3 tags out of that other side. And because I didn't make this this center fold cut, I'm going to just kind of clean that up a little bit. And does that mean there's going to be a little whisper of waste? Yes. Yes, it does. I don't think any junk journal jury would convict me for throwing that one away, though. Now, this piece, I am going to cut this long, on this long line here. So that's 4 inches in, and to cut that down. And this might be a little bit too big. An 8-inch deep tag is really big. When I actually do it, I might cut a little bit off the bottom, but I'm going to wait and decide that after I've put the decorative front on, whatever that's going to be. So there's that one. And then here is a piece that is just a little over 7.5 in width, but I know it's 8 inches this way. So let me turn it here and slice that right in half to be 4. There we go. And one is just slightly bigger than than the other, because my cutting did not reflect there's a little bit of variance in folders and in my measurements. But here we have, from the big guns to the little tiny things that we can tuck into small pockets. Look, there's these journal backs, this journaling surface, these tag backs are all done. Then we can get to the fun part and do the fronts. I think these are going to be really fun to have in my stash. I've been using them a lot lately. I'm glad to have another batch, and I hope that this is something that works out well for you too. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you soon. Bye.